Hello, this is Verna Birch, and I will be going over the biography of William Nat Schoenfeld. He's also commonly referred to as just Nat Schoenfeld in a lot of the research. He lived from 1915 to 1996. As an introduction, to provide some background information on him, he was a psychologist, author, and professor at Columbia University. He wrote the Principles of Psychology with his colleague from Columbia, Fred Keller. He worked alongside Fred Keller in the psychology department at Columbia as well. They created a psychology curriculum which was different than previous psychology coursework in that it was scientifically based and just behaviorism focused. He helped create the first peer-reviewed journal for behaviorism called the Journal of Experimental Analysis of Behavior. He was greatly influenced by the works of Skinner and Ivan Pavlov, and he mentions their work quite consistently in his writing. He was born in 1916 and died in 1996. He also served as a psychology department chair at Queens College in New York. Toward the end of his life, he taught at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. One of the works that I found that he authored was The Principles of Psychology. It is widely considered to be one of his most prominent contributions to the behaviorism field. It was essentially a textbook co-authored by his colleague from Columbia, Fred Keller. It featured many of the studies that Schoenfeld and Keller and their graduate team conducted. It also presented Skinner's concepts in systematic, simplified way that made it accessible to a broader, non-behaviorist population. It used many examples from research and commonplace phenomena to explain what was at the time very new concepts to the field of psychology. Another work that I found from him was the curriculum by him and Frank Keller of the introductory course to psychology in Columbia. It is significant because it's a drastic departure from previously accepted psychology coursework. Most psychology coursework before then focused on internal mechanisms such as personality drives and intelligence to explain the causes of behavior. Keller and Schoenfeld went away from that idea and argued that the scientific study of behavior was the most critical and most basic concept in psychology, and everything else simply elaborated on it. They were the first instructors to require a laboratory component to the psychology curriculum, and as a result of them retooling the course to be more empirically focused, the course actually earned students a science credit from Columbia, which was a first for a psychology course. Another work that Schoenfeld authored was Reinforcement in Behavior Theory in 1995. It was one of his works that exemplifies his attempt to have the concepts of behaviorism be more accessible and understood by a broader non-behaviorist population. He elaborated on theories from Skinner and Pavlov. He emphasized the important role that reinforcement has in shaping behavior. He presented the idea of need and its relation to reinforcement. Reinforcement is essentially need reducing and is the principle that leads it to be effective at influencing behavior. That need can be understood as a motivating operation. He explained biological needs for homeostasis as natural drives. The Necessity of Behaviorism was a work that he authored in 1993. It was an article written by Schoenfeld toward the end of his life. By this point, he had seen different theories and approaches come and go, and this work was a response to the skeptics who deemed behaviorism a fad, and that a new science was needed to explain behavior. He argued that all natural sciences essentially studied behavior. He defended behaviorism as a valid, relevant science that adhered to the principles of scientific study as other sciences did. He argued that the target of behaviorism is simply observed behavior. It could be described as a response or reflex, as Skinner previously explained it. He clearly defined the topography of the behavior and that it is simply a response to the environment or environmental history and not a communicative, quote-unquote, channel that grants introspective access. Pain, a Verbal Response was written by Schoenfeld in 1981, and it explored the definitions of pain as a response, drive, state, or stimulus. He explained that pain, in behaviorist terms, he presented pain as a learned verbal behavior and that pain exists simply because someone says they are experiencing it. He contrasted it with pain that animals feel. He asked, do animals truly feel the same pain humans do because they don't report it? He emphasized that in pain studies where pain can supposedly be controlled, pain cannot be measured aside from a verbal report from the subject. He concluded that pain is a socially shaped construct that relies on taught understandings of what pain is, and that the idea of pain is relative to the subject. Some of the major findings and themes that I noticed in a lot of his works was that he was a prominent trailblazer in the field of behaviorism. He was one of the first to present it to a larger audience. He and Keller made a bold move to make an introductory psychology course to be focused solely on behaviorism. He presented behavior as something that could be defined, measured, and manipulated. He reached a broader non-behaviorist population by applying behaviorist theory to different fields, such as biology, and he explained its relevance in those realms. He and Keller redefined behavior psychology as a science resembling other natural sciences. It was a stark contrast to previous theories such as Freud's that credited internal causes of behavior. He took many of the theories of Pavlov and Skinner, who he was greatly influenced by, and he simplified and organized and applied them to increase their accessibility and to the general population. For my mock interview, the questions that I would ask William Schoenfeld are, what were the biggest challenges in explaining behaviorism in the face of previously accepted explanations of behavior? Also, what do you consider to be the most surprising advances in understanding or the application of behaviorism? I would also ask, what do you consider to be your greatest contribution to behaviorism? What current areas of research would you like to explore, since research was something that he was known for and he wanted to explore different realms through behaviorism? And with knowing how the field has evolved, what are significant changes or additions you would make to the second edition of the Principles of Psychology?